In this video, I'm going to be breaking down my entire 2023 month by month for my print-on-demand business. It's tax season, so I was recently just going through all of these numbers, getting all my ducks in a row, and I wanted to share with you the revenue, my ad spend, how many listings I had, how much time I was investing, really all of the frequently asked questions when it comes to anything related to my print-on-demand business. I'm going to break it down month by month just to show how my business grew throughout the year, because this was my first full calendar year. 2023 was really where my print-on-demand business started to ramp up, and I saw a substantial climb in my revenue and also my income that I was bringing into my bank account from it. Now, before we dive in, I just want to give a little bit of context just to share a little bit about me and my lifestyle and really what my time looked like while building my print-on-demand business. For one, if you're new here, my name is Taylor. Hello. I am an Etsy seller who specifically sells print-on-demand items. On my channel here, I focus on all things Etsy and print-on-demand, so of course, if that interests you and you haven't done so already, be sure to just boop that subscribe button down below. I also am a wife, more so a newlywed. I did get married in 2023. I also am a mom to a little boy who is 4, so he occupies a lot of my time. I'm sure those who are parents who are watching this totally can understand maybe the constant interruptions anytime you're trying to do anything. And throughout 2023, I also worked a full-time corporate job. And so just to sum it up, I live a busy life. I also just want to give a quick little disclaimer. This video is really just meant to inspire you. I found videos like these incredibly motivating when I was starting my print-on-demand business. I would find videos like this and honestly just rewatch them over and over again because they just lit a fire in me. I wanted to create a video like this in hopes that it will do the same for many of you watching. Before I hit record on my camera, I actually asked my Instagram followers, which if you aren't already following me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram. That's where I post a little bit more behind the scenes, some extra tips, tricks, motivation, all the good stuff. But I had asked what types of information that my followers wanted to see in this video. And so I did have one question that I wanted to just answer up front because I feel like it is more so generalized to my entire year as opposed to month by month. And that is how many niches that I was selling in. This being my first full calendar year selling on Etsy, I was guessing with a lot of things. Of course, I was doing my research and I was looking up different niches that I thought would be good to tap into for different times of the year, but some of them were hits and some of them were misses. Oftentimes each month, I would say that I was selling in about 3 to 5 niches, but those niches looked different from month to month because I was targeting different seasonal type niches and then also starting to kind of build upon my evergreen niches that I sell in my shop as well. Kicking it off with January, I sold $3,640.15 in revenue. My total ad spend was $340, and my profit after Etsy fees and my production costs for my products was $1,013.16, which was a 30% profit margin. This was a very exciting month for me because it was my first January, and I'll be honest, I was expecting to literally sell nothing. I had a little bit of success in Q4, and I figured, well, January's here. I'm not going to sell anything anymore because everybody online just talks about how nobody sells anything in January. It's a slow month, and I just thought my store was going to die off. But I was pleasantly surprised with this being my first month that I made over $1,000 in profit. At this time, I had around 300 listings, give or take some. When I first started my shop, a goal that I had set for myself was to try to aim for about 100 listings a month. And I was about right on track with that goal because this was my third full month selling on Etsy. A fun fact about me is I am a early riser. I am much more of a morning person than I am an evening person. So during the month of January, I would wake up really early. So as early as like 4 in the morning, which I know sounds crazy. If you're not a morning person, you're not going to understand that. But that is just what felt like it worked for me. So I would wake up really early, 4 a.m. some days, and I would just work on my Etsy shop until my son would wake up, which then would be around 6:37. I would get him ready for daycare for the day, start my work day, and then come home. In the evenings, if I had time to work on my Etsy shop, I would. However, the evenings weren't necessarily always the easiest opportunity for me because then it involved cooking dinner and bath time and just trying to get my house in order from the day and kind of prep for the following day. So that was really my routine when it comes to working on my shop in the month of January. I would do that as much as I could. So I would say I was probably spending around 15-ish hours a week working on my shop. And then on the weekends, that was a different story. That was an opportunity where I would often be able to devote a little bit more time. I wouldn't wake up as early. I would sleep in, get a little bit of rest in my routine. But on the weekends in general is just where I had more of an opportunity to spend some extra time working on my shop. So then for February I sold $3,411.27 in revenue. My ad spend was $164.99, and I had a profit of $1,113.41, which my profit margin jumped up a little bit there to around 32%. Something that I also want to clarify is I have run Etsy ads since I started my shop. I am a big believer in Etsy ads. I am going to link my Etsy ad video in the description box below for you to check out after this one. At this time in my Etsy shop, I was following the exact calculation that I have in that video for how I determined my budget for my Etsy ads, which the equation involves finding out your average daily profit and then taking about 5% of that towards running towards your daily Etsy ad budget. Watch that video, it explains it, breaks that calculation down. What that looked like at this point is I was spending around $5 to $7 a day on Etsy ads. As far as listings, I had gotten up to around 400 listings in the month of February, and my time commitment to my shop looked the same as in January, just still waking up those early mornings, working on my shop on the weekends as I could, and so I was still spending probably about 15, maybe on the high side, 20 hours a week working on my shop. In March, I sold $5,486.95, which was really exciting for me. I was excited to reach over a $5,000 month. That was a big milestone. I spent $201 on ad spend, and my profit was $1,400.24. My profit margin did dip down a little bit at this point. I went to about a 25% profit margin, and I think that was because I had actually increased my ad budget. This is where I increased it to about $10. And when running Etsy ads, it is very important to keep an eye on your Etsy ad dashboard, see what types of listings are really consuming a lot of your ad budget, because there can be listings that might be using a big portion of it but aren't leading to sales, which is a whole nother problem in itself. I have a Etsy troubleshooting video which really dives into this and what you can really analyze from having a listing like that, as well as how to solve a problem like that if you were experiencing it in your shop. But with that being said, where I had increased my ad spend a little bit, I also was having some listings that were eating up more of that ad budget than I would have liked them to. Also in March is where a lot of my original listings that I had started my shop with 4 months prior were starting to expire. I had tons of listings that just were not the best quality and never sold. So then I was working really hard to create new listings and really fill up my shop. At this time, I had around 500 listings, but I also had tons of those previous listings expire. I probably actually had created like 200 listings in this month because I was replacing a lot of listings that were expiring and creating new ones. And again, continuing into March, my time commitment still looked the same, still about 15 to 20 maximum hours a week, early mornings, time on the weekends, just where I could. For April looked a lot like March. I sold $5,450.37. My ad spend was $238. I earned $1,381.07, which was still about a 25% profit margin. As far as listings, I had gotten to about 600 listings by the month of April. And for April, my time commitment to working on my shop still looked the same as it did for January through March. Okay, so now for May is where I really started to see a huge spike and a lot of growth in my shop. In May, I sold $9,920.58. I was so close to hitting 10K. I honestly just count it as hitting 10K. It's like right there. What was really exciting about May for me is I actually was traveling during the first week of May. So I had a work trip for my full-time job that I had to travel out of state for. And so I really didn't have the same time to be working on my Etsy shop. I kind of had this idea in my head that if I wasn't consistent and constantly spending time, even if it was just a little bit of time each day, working on my Etsy shop, that my Etsy shop just was going to die. I wouldn't make any sales. It wasn't going to grow. And so I think it was actually very healthy for me to have to go away for this work trip because I wasn't working on my Etsy shop at all while I was on the work trip. I was, of course, just doing any like customer service and fulfilling orders that needed to be edited or modified in any way. But I was still seeing a ton of sales in that week that I was gone that I think it just put my mind at ease a little bit. It's like, okay, I can take a little bit of a step away, and the results of all of that work that I had been putting in was still there and was still showing. I had sold over $2,500 while I was away, and that just felt like the win I was looking for in having this extra stream of income and having it feel very passive to me, and me earning an income while I was on this trip without having to create new listings and be doing things in my shop. For May, my ad spend was $272.25, and my profit was $2,090.38. During this month, I had gotten up to about 800 listings, and during the month of May is actually when I also uploaded my very first YouTube video. So during this month, I scaled back the hours a little bit, and I was probably only working on my shop about 5 to 10 hours a week at this point. For June, this is where I officially hit over the $10,000 mark. I sold $14,189.89. That was my total revenue. My ad spend was $328.36, and my profit was $3,517.95, which was about a 25% profit margin. I did not really increase my number of listings in the month of June. I still stayed right around that 800 mark. I had some that were still expiring and I was adding some, but I wasn't adding enough to really grow that total listings in my shop at this time. As I mentioned, in May is where I had uploaded my very first YouTube video, and my first YouTube video just somehow hit the algorithm and did really well. And I think it's at like 30,000 views, which is a lot. That's the most views I've had on a single video on my channel. So YouTube became another thing on my plate and something that I wanted to invest my time into to grow. So I wasn't spending, again, as much time on my shop. I was spending probably about the same amount of time as in May, around 5 to 10 hours a week at the most. In July, I sold $12,655.35. My ad spend was $439.93, and my profit was $3,423.38. I still remained around that 800 listing mark. I wasn't really listing a ton. I was creating more YouTube videos and investing my time into other projects as well. But just reflecting on my profit, earning over $3,000 was more than I was earning with my full-time job. So for me to be doubling my income and not really investing that much time in my print-on-demand business made it feel very passive to me. And it also made me kind of begin to wonder, well, what would it look like if I did invest full-time hours into it? This is probably about the time frame where I started kind of getting the idea of like, maybe this could be a full-time job for me. Maybe this is something that I could aspire to leave my 9-to-5 and grow this instead. In the month of August, I sold $18,797.17. My ad spend was $1,009.70. And the reason is I decided to get a little bit higher with my ad spend. I was spending $100 a day in the month of August, and my strategy at this point was I was going to just increase it a little bit more and just see kind of if the reward was there. And I was doing this in hopes to really expand my ad budget in Q4 and see growth and success as a result of it, which we'll get to. My profit for the month of August was $4,364.39. So my highest profit month to date. Crazy to think that I was making well more than what I was making in my full-time job with my print-on-demand business. And I still had around 800 listings in the month of August. For September, I sold $14,170.23. September was surprisingly slow for me, but I learned and heard from many other sellers in the community that many were experiencing a slower September, and I attribute that to it just being the time where people are saving their money a little bit more because they know they're going to be spending it in the holiday season. My ad spend was $1,597.38. I had increased my ad spend again in September. About halfway through September, I had increased it to about $300 a day. I wasn't spending all full of that $300 a day, but that's what the max budget was. And then my profit was $3,967.66. Profit margin wise, this was actually a lot higher than August. I had gone into my ads and I really had adjusted them before making that next jump to the $300 budget that I mentioned. And I also made a few adjustments in my pricing strategy so that I was prepared going into Q4. Some of my more common best-selling listings I increased the prices on, and it really rewarded me here. I did create some listings in September because of course I wanted to be prepared for the holiday season. So I got my shop to around 900 listings, and in September is where I did increase the amount of time I was spending on my shop because I was looking to, again, really get it prepared for the holiday season. So I was probably spending about 15 to 20 hours a week again, like I was in the beginning of the year. And next we have October. October, I sold $17,685.06. My ad spend was $3,539.96. I increased my ad spend to the maximum budget that Etsy would allow me this month, and that was my plan for Q4. So at this point, my ad spend was $1,000 a day, which, as you can see by the number I shared, I did not spend all $1,000 a day. My profit was $5,482.36, which was about a 31% profit margin, and I did not increase my listings in the month of October. I stayed right around the 900 mark. My time investment in October became significantly less. At this time, my YouTube channel had grown significantly, and so I was really focusing on creating videos, and I was actually getting ready to travel at the end of October. I was getting ready to travel to my wedding. I got married in the very end of October, and my husband and I, we got married internationally. His family is Italian, his mother is from Italy, and so we actually got married in Italy. And so with that, I wanted to make sure that I had created some videos ahead of schedule so that I could still stay consistent in my posting routine with YouTube. In order to do that, you just have to work double or triple the amount to kind of catch yourself up with creating videos. And so that's what I did. I spent more of my time invested there, and I spent less time working on my Etsy shop. So at this time, I wasn't creating new listings, and really all I was working on in my shop was customer service and just reviewing my orders from each day. And so what that looked like for me in the mornings when I woke up, I would go in and look at my orders, review all of them, make sure everything looked good, answer any customer messages. This time often was only about 30 minutes or so every single morning. So my time investment was significantly less than 10 hours, probably less than 5 hours a week. And again, it was only just to answer customer messages and fulfill orders. In November, I sold $28,104.82, which is just like, my ad spend was $5,835.01, and my profit was $8,307.78. I was baffled by this number, and mainly because of my time commitment to my Etsy shop at this point, which I want to dive into. I was only home for 2 weeks out of the entire month of November. As I mentioned, I got married at the end of October, and that travel extended into the first week of November. So I was out of the country during that time, and then I was back home for a week. And then the third week in November, I had another work trip that I had to travel out of the state for. Then the following week was Thanksgiving. And the fourth week, I had another trip for my husband's job that we had to travel out of the state for. I was constantly gone for the month of November. It was a very, very busy month for me. And with that meant that I spent very little time on my Etsy shop. Like October, I just fulfilled orders, answered messages, and that was it. I was not creating listings. I was not doing anything for the growth of my shop. But as you can see, it was still growing. Of course, this was during the peak Q4 season. So it's expected to see growth if you already have had sales and have some momentum built in your shop. And I saw that as a result. And our grand finale, the month of December. December, I sold $33,158.42. My ad spend was $7,326.85, which at this time, I had thought that the max budget that you could ever spend on ads was $1,000, and Etsy was like, nope, for you, you can actually spend $1,300. So I learned that in the month of December, and so I did increase my budget to that, which I was never spending anywhere near that amount. For December, the highest ad spend day that I had was around $400, and it ended up paying off. My profit for the month of December was $10,106.63. Again, my listings stayed around the same. It did dip a little bit below that 900 mark just because I had some listings that were expiring and I wasn't creating new listings to fill their spots. Absolutely crazy for me to see my first $1,000 profit in January and then to see $10,000 in profit in the month of December. That brings our grand total for the year of 2023. My profit was $46,164.41. I also want to note that I made the most money when I was the least active. And that is what I find so fascinating about print on demand, because it is a business model that when you put in the hours and the work like I was doing in the beginning of the year, that really does compound over time. And I feel the growth of my shop, and I'll put it right here just to kind of show the all-time effort on a graph there. But you can see how much that early effort rewarded me later. Something that I've also shared on my channel before that I just want to share again is this graph that talks about input and output. And in the beginning, when I was working on my shop, I was spending much more hours than I was seeing profit. And it's interesting to see how that actually flip-flopped towards the end of the year, where I was spending basically no time or barely any time at all, and my profit was significantly higher. My goals for 2024 are obviously to grow. I recently did make the decision to leave my full-time job. And so I've been able to invest my time full-time into this business. And I'm really excited to see the rewards of that effort throughout my business this year. If I were to just throw out a random revenue goal that I have for 2024 in my shop, I would say a great year would be to see my shop over $200,000, which so far year to date, I have sold $14,825.13, which is over a 200% increase from last year. Continuing on that track, I should be well on my way to exceeding that goal, but I'll keep you updated. Leave any comments that you have down below. I know that there will probably be questions. I will try to answer as many as I can in the comments down below. I hope that this video served as inspiration. I will just do a quick plug of all of my free resources. I have 3 free mini courses that are part of my Kickstart program. There's POD, Design, and SEO Kickstart. They are called my Kickstart courses because they are intended to just give you a good kickstart, get you going with your print-on-demand business. And if you were looking for community and mentorship in this year to start and scale your business as well, check out the POD Connection. This is my mentorship group where I offer unlimited coaching. I can work with you directly, and we have monthly coaching calls, challenges, tons of fun stuff going on over there. So definitely check that out if you are interested. As always, I hope you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in the next one.